pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. If I'm coming apart. Welcome to the Town of Philipstown Planning Board for October 2018. Tara, will you call the roll?
Anthony Moranci.
Here.
Kim Connor.
Here.
Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
David Hardy.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Neil Tolman.
Here.
Neil Zuckerman.
It's on his way.
Okay.
What he said.
Minutes of the September 20th meeting for approval. Any corrections?
I have one correction.
Okay.
I have one correction. On page 18, there's a sentence that says, Mr. Gavas suggested that Conservation Board review of this is required, but I think it's meant to say is not required.
Correct, Steve?
I'm trying to see where she's on page 18, but I don't know.
So it's the second sentence. Mr. Gavas suggested.
Mr. Garrett, this is- Yes, it should be not required.
Thank you.
Absolutely right.
Anyone else? Move to adopt the minutes from September?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The first item of old business, James Copeland, 3052 Route 9, Cold Spring. Applicant seeking a change in use from retail to office space. And Jamie?
Good evening. Thank you. We've been working with Ron Gaynor, the engineer, to work out some last minute. I have a couple of things I wanted to hand out in response to his most recent letter.
As the board will recall, the matter was actually on last month's agenda, but the applicant took himself off, and so he's here tonight. We had actually prepared resolutions for your September meeting, but there was no action taken. Since the applicant had submitted some revised plans for tonight's meeting, I've developed a short memorandum to just identify the few remaining technical issues that need to be evidenced on the plan. I believe the applicant is just passing out some information that has been identified in my memo as lacking. But again, I have updated the resolutions just to reflect this memorandum that has just been issued and has redated the resos that you saw last month. Otherwise, they should be ready for your consideration.
Ron, this information we just received, how does this relate to any physical characteristics of the property? Or
Let's see, there's two items that have been passed out. One is just a bulk dimensional regulation, or a table that belongs on the site plans. So he's just identified the information that'll get carried forward into the site plans themselves, which your code requires. The second item is just identification of some low vegetation that he's proposing along the frontage of the property, just to clearly delineate that there's no access along the frontage of the property except at the DOT point of access. I'll look through this, but I presume this is going to be acceptable.
one question
All the
go ahead.
vegetation along the frontage has to be low growing. Can't be anything high that might affect sight distance.
Right, and the one question I have is this native? Is any of it invasive from, not native to this area?
No, those are all Hudson Valley
Okay.
ground covers. The dilemma there is you can't get something that's going to grow very tall, or you're going to obscure some of that sight line.
Yeah, right. But,
These are native? Angelina sedum is a native local plant?
Well, they were recommended to me as being native.
I can confirm that with the town natural resource officer. I'll check in with Max and
I mean,
make sure that he verifies what plantings would be appropriate.
Yeah, because sedum, the thing about sedum is that it's gone in the winter. You know, so it'll just disappear, so it's not gonna.
You mean it's not going to die off, though? You're saying it
No,
just
no, no,
goes-
but it's one of those things that dies back, so in the winter, so you wouldn't even necessarily know there was anything there. I don't know, I think, talk to Max about what, you know.
All right, so we'll have him identify or select the planting list.
that's the only question I have. Anybody else have any questions on this?
I was just going to ask about the landscaping for stabilization in the back, because there was a discussion about there being invasive species back there, and a suggestion about plantings that would stabilize.
On that back slope, we have added notes that we're going to be gleaning the invasives and replacing with local plants.
I didn't see the replacement of the plant part, I just saw the cleaning part, so that's good. The only other thing I was going to ask is in terms of the easements between the two entities, what's Copeland Masson Foods? Is that are you opening a restaurant?
It's a small cookie company that my daughters and I started.
Small company or small cookies?
They're pretty big cookies, but it's basically there's no food production. It's simply a property that my kids are going to own.
And is it the residential piece or the office
residential piece.
Okay. So those are both your companies then that are trading easements between them? That's what that's about?
I'm sorry.
Because
What was the question?
The easements, because there was some cross trading of easements, or
Yes.
there's a document in here. It seemed like both of those must be your companies. I was just,
Yes. I own Hudson Structures. My kids own Mouse and Copeland Foods. They have an easement to access their site through this drive, and we have easement to use the parking.
those are all my questions.
One additional one. I wasn't here last month, but I didn't notice it in the minutes. Has the situation with the contiguous property owner with his material being placed on your other lot, has that been settled?
It's ongoing. Material
Okay.
shows up and disappears on a regular basis, so I'm not aware of
Okay. Just,
what it is right now.
okay, it's not really germane to this, so I just wanted to, okay. Anybody else have any questions? For a secret declaration? Anybody?
I'll make that motion that we
Negative?
adopt a negative deck under seeker.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ron has prepared a resolution. Is it worth summation, Ron, or we've been over this enough?
Again, they're standard conditions of the board. We also note that they do require receipt of a permit from the Conservation Board for any activities within 100 feet of the stream. And as I said earlier, resolution of the technical comments that are contained in my latest memorandum. Kim had identified the last issue, and that was submitting the cross easements for review by the board's attorney.
Okay. Motion to adopt the resolution. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Second item, Barbara Peck Isla, Lake Celeste Drive, Old Albany Post Road. In the minutes, or in the agenda, it was noted public hearing was held and closed at last month's meeting. To speak on that issue? Well, no, is anyone here to speak on it? Bill, yeah. Okay.
No, he's not the applicant, though.
Yeah, you're not, yeah. Steve, what's,
The public hearing's closed.
yeah, public hearing is
Public
closed.
hearing's closed, we're not, unless the board, in its discretion, decides to accepting further comments. Is anybody here for the applicant, though?
That's it. Okay, well, I have a couple questions. Anybody going through the minutes want to talk about this road?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Neil.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yes,
I think you want
yes.
you to start.
Okay, well, reading Ron's report and responses, this road to me seems like it's a major remedial work. And we're looking only at access. And if the access is over this road, all other issues have been brought up by residents to me are not germane, but it is, from our engineer's point of view, this thing is really, I don't know if we could even condition an approval condition on this road being brought up to, your engineering, I don't know, certainly not town standards, Ron, so I don't know what you think about.
Yeah, if we just go back through a little bit of history, the land development regs, chapter 112, has specific guidance or standards for roadway construction for private roads. If the applicant were to bring up a private road to that standard, the board would have no issue with it. It would just be a matter of getting permission to pull a building permit. Because they're not able to reach that standard, then it became a matter for this planning board to review to establish what construction requirements would be appropriate to provide safe and reasonable access, which is the term used in your code. And so that's what the board has been wrestling with since the application's been filed. As you remember, in the very beginning, or shortly after receipt of the application, you then referred the matter to the fire department because they would be the ones to respond to any emergencies on that road. The fire department issued a written correspondence to this board to identify several areas where they felt upgrades were necessary that the board had accepted at the time. At the public hearing, significant concern was raised. Now, again, I was not here at last month's meeting. But the outcome of that, as I understood it, was to further review the issue of appropriate upgrades to that roadway that would, serve to establish what would be safe and reasonable access for this applicant to address in order for the board to grant the access approval being requested. So what I did just earlier this week is to meet with the fire department, the applicant directly, and there was also a surveyor who happens to be a local individual in the area who had, I guess, researched all deeds and developed a survey plan of the right-of-way for the road, and it tied down all property boundaries. That's been filed with this board before. But I also had him present at this site inspection. And then we all just walked the project site. And so the outcome of that walk, and in any area that we identified a need, which basically was areas where the road was extremely narrow, we identified an appropriate mitigation measure, and that's been outlined in this memorandum you have from me that's dated October 17th. And it goes through there's 9 separate itemized lists of areas encompassing both the private road, Lake Celeste Road, as well as the easements that are traversed in order to get onto the Peck Isler parcel. Just today, I mean, this was issued to the board, but also issued to the applicant. The applicant, as I said, was present at the site inspection, and this reflects comments that we came up with jointly, but certainly included the recommendations of the fire department. So this doesn't really change the guidance that the fire department gave you previously, but it provides more clarification or greater detail on the specific types of upgrades that are needed in the general areas that they had identified in their prior letter. Now, just today, the applicant's representative, the engineering firm, issued a letter to the planning board to acknowledge receipt of this itemized listing and agree that these were appropriate upgrades to consider to become a burden on the applicant in order to provide safe and reasonable access to the property. So, I mean, we could go into great detail if you wish, but it's just a matter of understanding that this was an outcome that all parties had contributed to, and all I did was document it for the record.
Okay, just a couple of little questions I have. It seems like a point has been brought up, and I just wonder about mitigation or repairs on this road, if moving walls, property lines, people's property lines. Some people talked about their septic system was just within a few feet of the quote-unquote road line. I mean, are there fiduciary obligations on the applicant to homeowners? And as I said, this applicant is not a member of the association, and I guess it was stated that that's not necessary. They can still go ahead on their own. But what encumbrances would there be if someone wants to do all these things that are recommended? Cutting people's lines, moving the walls, and so on and so forth.
Let me stay just on the technical side for a minute. I'll let Steve address the other issue. The improvements that we've identified are specific to the roadway itself. It's immediately adjacent to the existing traveled way. And in every area that we had identified improvements, they either lie within the delineated right-of-way that came from that property survey that Rowan had prepared and provided to you, or they're within established easements that were also identified on that survey map.
Okay.
So we're not going beyond the limits of the right-of-way onto private property as identified by survey. So they're immediately adjacent to existing travelway. Now, there's various encumbrances within that easement, or within the right-of-way. And as you say, there's very formal stone walls. There's actually structures in the right-of-way. None of these improvements impact those improvements. What we're doing is just pushing the edge of road for the most part, where there might be just rubble or just a grass shoulder that I want widened just to at least provide a 12-foot width that the fire department indicates would provide them with more than sufficient space for access. So as I understand it, based on the survey that's been filed, it doesn't encumber private property.
Okay. Take one additional item that I have. The bridge that's been talked about.
Right.
Does that need to be upgraded also?
No, the fire department offered no concern, and it's actually constructed with an 8-inch thick concrete slab, which should be sufficient to support this. I have their engineer reviewing or providing the town with calculations just to verify, design loadings to verify that. But the fire department's been over that. They never issued a concern in their original letter or in the recent sidewalk. So I don't see that to be an issue.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
No,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, I didn't know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go
Based on reviewing the applicant's submission and the public comment and such, and then looking at your comments
Ron, and also incorporating the fire department's comments. And this might go to Steve more than anything at this point in time. If those conditions are met, based on what you looked at, analyzed regarding trees, widening areas, cutting some rock away, if those conditions are met, does it come down to the ability of the applicant to actually do those improvements? If they can do them, if they get permission from the homeowners association? I mean, where's the line drawn on that?
Again, the charge of this board is to identify, what's reasonable and safe to access for that lot. In terms of the issue of whether they have that right, I'll let Steve respond.
Well, we've been over this several times. Let's see if we can simplify it this way.
Can you just, before you, if they can do it, basically it's really the call of what the board is recommending to do. They would have to get the approval from the homeowners association?
Well, maybe and maybe not. I mean, it
Okay.
depends on what their rights are under
Sorry.
their easement. I mean, certainly they'd be well advised to talk to all their neighbors and say, this is what I'm going to do, and make sure there isn't trouble down the line. But I don't know that there's a legal requirement that they do it. But again, if I could go back to, so you're going to, if you approve this, you're going to adopt a resolution saying we grant ODA approval. And I'd suggest that all of Ron's 9 items of improvement for the road be made conditions, express conditions of the ODA approval, and further that you include a provision in the resolution saying that no building permit may issue. Now, it's the law anyway as far as that goes, but it's good to have it up front so there's not an issue with it. No building permit will issue until they demonstrate to the engineering consultant that all the work has been completed on the road. And then it's up to them. They can go out and get, if they need them, if they're able, easements from their neighbors. They may duke it out in court. Who knows how it's going to come out as far as that goes. But if at the end of the day they're able to make those improvements, then they get the building permit. And if they're not, then they don't.
Okay. Neil?
So Ron, I want to go back to a phrase you used a minute ago, reasonable and safe access. Is this road, as it currently exists for is it 24 homes that ring this road? Is this a reasonable and safe access road as it is now?
I think it's extremely narrow. There's areas where there's very little to no sight distance around some very abrupt or sharp turns. And the recommendations we're making will address those concerns. So we'll...
Let's assume Ms. Peckeiler never came into the picture. What is the recourse, whether this board or any municipality in the area, to try and make for a safe passage of fire vehicles on this road? I went on this road on Sunday. I'm shocked by the road. I would assume anybody who has a wooden house would like to have their house protected from fire. It seems like an unsafe place, regardless of Ms. Peckeiler. Can someone please talk about the safety of this road? And I assume the fire department equally felt that this was not a safe passage for its vehicles. Can you talk about that?
That's exactly true. Again, the road as it exists in certain areas, and that's where this listing comes from, is extremely narrow, has little to no sight distance. So what we've attempted to do is identify areas that need enhancement in order to provide safe and reasonable access. I know if I lived on that road, I would very much support any upgrades that could be brought to bear to make that more safe over what exists today. The fire department itself acknowledges that when they enter that road, they move very slowly down that road. They usually have people walking in front of their vehicles in order to negotiate
Doesn't sound like an
the areas.
emergency vehicle experience that I would want to have if my house was on
Right.
fire.
And these improvements are going to enhance access for everyone along that road.
So talk to me again. So let's assume Ms. Peckeiler never came in the picture. And the vitriol we heard, if I may use that word, last month was extreme enough where obviously Ms. Peckeiler is the source of their frustration. And yet the road seems not fairly passable by reasonable vehicles to save these people for whatever reason from health and home. Can we talk about what municipality has any right whatsoever to ensure safe passage of fire vehicles if the group is unwilling to make improvements, regardless again of Ms. Peckeiler?
Not on a private road. Private roads, private property, municipality can deny building permits and the like, as would be the case if you didn't grant the ODA approval here. But if the road is existing and people have acquired vested rights by building along it, there's really nothing the municipality can go in and say, gee, you know, we're not able to get fire engines up there or what have you. I mean, people own the property, and you know, it's been that way for a long time. There's really nothing the municipality can do.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. I'm the fire department, and I can't reasonably protect people on this road, it seems like. Certainly Lowe's on a certain side past the stone wall on one and the flattened stone in the other. Does the fire department say they can actually support these people on this road? And if so, how do they deal with their insurance when they're way back out there?
I understand the fire department, if they get a call, they're going to respond.
They will
The
try
fire chief specifically, I think I said that in previous correspondence, no matter where it is. They said it on this private road, they've done it for others that have also come before you. But they do acknowledge difficulty in responding timely. And they appreciate the interplay with the board to see if upgrades can be brought to bear to enhance their ability to protect the public. That's the most I can offer.
Can I make one final comment? I
Yeah,
realize
sure.
I'm going a little further afield, but I would direct this comment to my fellow board members and anyone from members of the public, including Mr. Florence, who's here representing the opposition. I strongly urge this group to think about how to make this a safer experience for all your residents, whether yourselves or your forebears or those you sell your home to in the future. We have an opportunity here, as I think Ron has stated a number of times, to actually make this road a safe and passable place for fire vehicles. It does not seem to do that now. I would leave Ms. Peckeiler, frankly, out of the topic and think about your own safety, because it is something that certainly for any site walk has proven demonstrates that this road is not an easily navigable and trafficable place. I strongly urge us to think about the opportunity regardless of Ms. Peckeiler.
Anyone else? I'd like to just, oh, Kim, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I get what you just said there. One of the things that I want to know, and I think probably you're going to tell me we can't do anything about it, is whether or not some kind of performance bond or something is required. Like, let's say they start doing the work and somebody's septic tank gets messed up, or somebody's, the well water that runs under the road, for example, that people mentioned. Like, that's probably not our problem, right? But I'm just wondering, like, what, you know, let's say we approve it and they start work and then it falls apart. That's just lawsuits, right? And insurance and stuff like that covers that problem. The town can't require, you know, that you demonstrate that you can afford to make the improvements that you're saying you're going to make.
You can require bonding for the work that they're going to do. You can't require bonding for damage to somebody else's private property. That's
Can
not
we require bonding on a private road?
Well, if it was a subdivision and they wanted to get their building permits before the road was built, then certainly you could, it's very common actually to bond the property beforehand. I've never seen a bond on an ODA road. I know the zoning board required one regarding a cell tower that was gonna make improvements to a private road along, but that was just in regard to damage to the road. That wasn't in regard to anybody else's property. What's going to happen, I would think, as a practical matter, is she's not going to be interested in bonding it. She's going to go in and make the improvements, and then, if she can, and then come back and get her building permit. So I don't think there's going to be any bonding involved in this at all.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? A couple of things I'd like to, I really want to go back to Ron's final sentence. It says, "We believe the above listing represents the extent of improvements necessary in order to provide safe and suitable access for emergency vehicles to the Peckeiler lot." that influences my vote. I just wanted to bring up two other things on these private roads. I remember there's two roads come off of Route 9, one on Walmer Lane, which had a bridge wiped out a number of years ago. So now everybody, including the fire company, has a long circuitous route to get onto Walmer Lane, which is a private road. There was another road called Torsia Road. They had another one had over Clove Creek. It was washed out. The residents refused to do anything to it. And the fire company had another circuitous route to get into it. And an individual came along and built a covered bridge. And, but Walmer Lane is still out of service. So I think that if we keep this last sentence that Ron wrote in my mind, I'm willing to make a move to, what?
Well, you want direct that resolutions with
Right.
findings be prepared for next meeting. You wouldn't want to vote on any.
No, that's it. Just to direct Ron to prepare resolutions. That granting access was based on these conditions being met. Anything additional to that, Steve?
No, I think as we discussed, it would be, it would specifically state that any building permit won't be granted until
Right.
it's been certified that all the conditions have been
Correct.
satisfied.
Okay. Anyone to make a move, make that motion? To direct Ron to draw the resolution
For consideration at next
for
month's meeting.
consideration at next month's meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You guys opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 3, Taylor, tell me if I'm saying this right, Fratesi, 220 South Highland Road, Garrison. Site plan approval for a 3-bedroom,
Oh, yeah. Did we get the guy Glenn?
who's got that phone?
I have a complaint about the owner of this this building. Where's the coffee? I'm kidding, I'm just kidding, I'm just joking around, sorry. I'm just kidding around, just kidding around.
Coffee and,
What?
coffee and,
Coffee and?
yeah.
Yeah, on the Danish, yeah, where's my Danish?
No, a little shot of.
Say, I was on the same page you were.
Sorry.
Let's, come on, folks, please, have a meeting to conduct.
Yes, you give it once, they expect it all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we have a meeting.
If you could just make your way to the back quietly. Thank you.
Taylor Fratesi, 220 South Highland Road. Site plan approval for a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath. They're not working on it very hard. Single-family home of 4,020 square feet with an attached garage of 898 square feet. A vacant lot of 17.08 acres. A site visit was conducted on September 9th. Glenn? Okay.
Is there a reason we're so tight and cozy tonight?
And you have magnifying glasses. Okay. Hey, Glenn.
Okay, Mr. Fratesi and Ms. Taylor have applied for approval of a site plan, construct about a little over 4,000 square foot home on this property. Remember, we were out there a couple of weeks ago, walked up some of us walked up the driveway, some of us rode. I think it was the oldest guy walked up the driveway.
I walked with you.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean the oldest guy didn't. what we basically have done is formalize the site plan. The overall property, I've forgotten the acreage, to tell you the truth, 17 acres off of the South Highland Road. The driveway is opposite the Garrison Fish and Game Club. All of the proposed activity is to take place in the one house site that's approved by the terms of the existing conservation easement that is being modified, and Mr. Fortesi is working with the Highland Land Trust, the holder of the easement, for that modification. I think the simple way to put it is it was approved for a slightly smaller house in terms of square footage, but it was a two-story house, and we're being proposed is a one-story house that's bigger, as I said, a little over 4,000 square feet, but it's in the same area. And the issue here with regard to the land trust concern with building on this piece of property is the visibility from the state park. Specifically, there's a place that anybody goes up there calls the chimney. People walk up to the chimney, and you can look back this way, and I wasn't able to spot the area when I walked up there after our meeting a couple of weeks ago. But this proposal will lower the profile of the building and make it less of an intrusive. Everything is happening within. For those of you who were there were white flags around there. I think I should flip this over. The white flags, my understanding is, were put out by the land trust as to those areas which I thought would be, if the building were kept within those areas, and we've done that. We're going to utilize the existing driveway. I told you incorrectly that the septic system was in. What is in is the fill, and the original plan and the fill is in place, and we have since applied to the health department for the rest of the system. So, and there was a question with regard to the steepness of the driveway, and it is steep. The driveway was constructed. We submitted to you permits for the driveway, and it was constructed at the time it was constructed, there was actually no limit on a driveway off a private road. Off a public road. There was a limit of a driveway off a private road, and this comes off a public road. So we want to avoid any further grading of the driveway because it'll just have to be wider, have to be deeper, it'll have to be a lot more excavation. You all drove up there in trucks. I've driven up there in my SUV. I've seen somebody drove up there in a sedan. Did you drive up with a sedan?
I've been up there in a Prius many times.
Yeah. So we believe that we have a, as of right, existing condition on this based on the driveway having been put in at a time when there was no legal grade, and this is passable. So that's our whole story.
Can you explain where the improvements lie beyond the existing easement?
Well,
Is it the sanitary?
Yes, but the sanitary system is allowable in the no-build area because it's underground. I mean,
Okay.
that's a bottom line
So
reason
then
why.
what portions of the structure lie beyond the existing easement limits? Do you know?
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you exactly. It's not very much, to tell you the truth.
It would be good to show the easement limits on that expanded plan.
We'll be happy to have that ready for the public hearing if you choose to have one. Yes.
The existing easement specifies, and you laid this out up there, a 30 by 50 rectangle.
No, you have to talk in the right mic.
Sorry. It specifies a 30-foot by 50-foot rectangle for the build area. Now, that was obviously just a conceptual build area because the allowed square footage of the footprint of the house by the original easement is 2,500 square feet. So there's a discrepancy between the rectangle describing the build area and the allowed possible footprint of the house. So that rectangle is right in this area here. But like I say, it was kind of more of a conceptual thing than an actual delineation of the exact area where the house was to be built. Does that make sense? It allowed for 25 feet in height, 2 floors, but only a 2,500 square foot footprint, so maximum 5,000 square foot house. What we're working on with the land trust is increasing the footprint, but decreasing the overall square footage and decreasing the height. So as to make it much less obtrusive.
Just keep that in mind when we have the public hearing. We want to restate it.
Yes, well, I'm hurting myself for that.
I would like to, there was one letter in the paper with regard to this, which I'm, well, sure you've read, criticizing building in this area. And I don't remember who it was from. It doesn't matter to me who it was from. But what one must consider is that all of that state park, virtually all that state park that's on the north side of Phillips Brook Road, I call Phillips Brook Road, but and was given in 2 large donations.
Excuse me, Glenn, I'm sorry, this is.
Okay, but give.
Gotta talk into the mic,
Was,
so she can hear you on the TV.
okay, was given, it was, all of that land at State Park was given by the Osborne family in two different generations of the Osborne family, and they kept this 17-acre piece and then the other piece that the Rockmores now own for eventual development. So I find it probably uninformed of the person who wrote the letter to say what a shame to build there, when the family that owned the property and specifically gave all of their property away and asked for kept only these 2 pieces, are now criticized for, their successors are criticized for wanting to exercise the building rights they kept.
Anybody else, initial comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So in that easement, did that include the garage? Was that part of the original plan? Because
There was an allowance for a garage in the original easement, yes.
Are there allowances for other buildings, like potential outbuildings?
There are not, and there will not be in the amended easement either.
Because your footprint with your garage is, how big is your garage? It's like
The
another.
garage is 900 square feet.
So that's another 1,000 square feet.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one question. So there's nothing we can do about the road being too steep?
Well,
Because of the
here's,
permits, the existing permits?
here's the situation, as I see it on that anyway. I mean, personally, I think the best thing would be if the road grade wasn't changed. I think you're gonna do a lot more site disturbance but road grade is a bulk requirement, just like lot area, just like front yard setback, rear yard et cetera, okay? And if you go to build a house on property that's non-conforming, generally speaking, you're gonna need a variance for it. So here, they either comply with road grade, and I think they're gonna have to go and get a variance for that unless they wanna really disturb the site. Or they can, in the alternative, apply for, well, it's basically the same variance, to build a house on a non-conforming lot. So, I mean, if there was some way to say they're grandfathered and you know, they can just build with a too steep driveway, you know, I could understand that, but I don't see anything in the code that grandfathers lots from road grade. So I mean, I'm open to discussing it, and I'm certainly willing to be persuaded, but I, as I sit here now, don't see a way they get out of going to the ZBA on this, or complying with road grade.
I really made my only point about that is when there was no road grade requirement, when driveway grade, when this driveway was put in, it was put in with a permit, a permit was closed out. It's been, to some degree or another, been maintained, and to some degree or another, been used consistently since that time. It's usable, and frankly, we're talking several feet of cut and quite a lot of land disturbance, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And I think I personally think it would be I'm not speaking for the land trust at all, but I personally think that would be the position they would take with regard to reducing the amount of disturbance necessary to make the improvements on the property.
Yeah, and I think that the ZBA should probably grant a variance based on that. I mean, I can't speak for the ZBA, obviously, but I mean, he probably has a vested right to maintain the driveway, because it's been there, he's got his approvals, he's done the improvements, I agree with that. But I don't see how he has a vested right to build a house on a lot with a non-conforming driveway. I can't get over that. But again, if you want to discuss it, I'm certainly willing to see if there's some way we can come up with a legal theory that would get you there. I don't see it now, though.
Well, there are, and I don't have a legal theory, I just have maybe one practical theory. I mean, if somebody has a non-conforming lot there, and they want to put an addition on their house, they can do that. They can
If it doesn't intrude further into the non-conformity, and I think putting a house at the end of a non-conforming driveway increases it.
I think that seems to me to be a stretch. I mean, it would be one thing if we wanted to continue the driveway further up a steeper grade. I could see that being an argument. But if we had a house there and wanted to build a barn there, further use of the driveway wouldn't be a violation, or wouldn't be something that would be turned down because of the zoning requirement of the driveway.
I hear what you're saying. Why don't you submit a letter or something like that, and we'll see if we can come up with an opinion to give the board to accommodate your position. If we can, that's something I'd like to do. But
I'd be happy to do that.
I don't know, no promises.
Okay. So my other question is, I see that these drawings say preliminary, but they don't have any.
They're preliminary until you approve them.
Okay, well, so there's no zoning data.
Pardon me?
There's no zoning data in them, so, you've got the requirements for the setbacks and things, but you didn't fill out the.
You're absolutely correct. I apologize for that. We'll do that. But I can assure you that none of the bulk requirements in terms of setbacks and stuff they're all
I'm
maintained.
just curious, so, because I thought I saw somewhere in some other piece of paper we have that something about the rear setback being 50 feet or less. Is that correct? Or is that some other document that I'm talking about? What would be the rear setback? Where would that be?
Go back to here. We're not short on any setback, I can assure you. The rear setback, I would take it, would be this line up here. The house is down here, and this is...
Not even close.
It's not even close. There's just no issue with regard to setbacks.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
We'll fill that table out.
Thank you. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, I was just wondering why it was called parcel 2. Is there parcel 1 somewhere?
Parcel 1 was the Rockmore parcel.
I don't know where that is.
That's the big house right next door.
Oh, okay.
43 acres right next door.
Okay. So I just looking at the documents and figuring out what things are. Okay, anybody else have any?
Anybody else?
Glenn, can you give us a timeline? Can you give us, you said that the driveway was installed in when, 2001?
That's the date on the paperwork.
Is that the date on the paperwork?
Close enough.
Okay,
All right.
yeah.
So 2001, we're here 17 years later. Has there been any other?
The requirement for driveway grade universally came in with the 2011 zoning. There were...
Okay. Have there been any other attempts to develop this property? Has anybody else?
There's been at least 2 false starts that I know, that I can remember.
And why were they thwarted?
I guess the people changed their mind. I mean, at least at least one of those two was well prior to the zoning change, when it would have been a matter of just getting a building permit. And perhaps even if this plan, which we purport, and which we say and believe will reduce the impact visually from the park, with a 25-foot, 100-foot limitation on the footprint of the building, we wouldn't even be here.
I'm more concerned, I'm thinking more about the driveway. I'm wondering, well, if it went that long without being developed, was the driveway the reason?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
I mean, I think, again, that would...
I spoke with the previous owners, the Chermayevs, and actually, if you look online, you can see video of Ivan Chermayev speaking about the project in front of plans and describing how he was wrecked in the stock market crash of 2008 and 2009. Also, the house was designed by his son, who is an architect. His son, before the project got started, took a job with a Japanese architecture firm and left the country, and that decreased their motivation to build the house as well. So it was a couple of different things. They ended up buying a property somewhere else in Garrison, and subsequently...
There's nothing on the record anywhere about its driveway being an issue prior to this. I mean, I don't know, my gut on this is, I sort of side with Steve, is that if had there been a house, you'd have a better argument for a grandfather situation had any construction taken place. But we don't even have the septic in. They put in a road, and then they ran utility lines, and then sold it. There was never a C of O. There was never, so for me, the idea of something being grandfathered in has to do with how much of an initial, you know, how vested is someone in the property. Just my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else? Looking over the Ron's comment of the 16th the other day, I see that it's been declared minor.
Yeah, you did that originally.
Yeah, and the site, it's been visited, had a site visit. Referrals have been made,
Right,
and seeker's been determined as unlisted.
yep, all that was identified at the initial meeting.
Right. So we should schedule a public hearing?
I guess that would be the normal protocol, except the question remains, do they first require a variance to advance the application? So I think that matter should be put to bed, unless Steve has a different opinion.
It could be conditioned, you could stay the closing of the public hearing, and we could condition, if that becomes necessary, you could condition any action on securing the variance.
That's what I would recommend. There's no reason not to schedule a public hearing as
Okay.
far as I can see, and, if it turns out that they have to go, worst case scenario, you hold it open.
Okay. Anyone make that motion? Schedule a public hearing for next month, conditional on getting the variance?
No,
The condition on determining if a variance is needed.
Well, no, just hold the public hearing, and then if we need to do more in regard to
Okay, we'll make
that.
part of the condition, okay. Okay, who made the motion? I did. Neil, second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do we figure out if it has to go to the ZBA then?
I'm gonna sit down and hit the books. I'll talk with Glenn, have him submit a letter and make his case, and I'll submit a memo to the board, stating either I've come to the conclusion that they need to go or they don't, and you'll act accordingly.
Will you then send a request or ask for an opinion from the zoning board attorney? Or you submit between what you and the applicants?
Well, look, if you want to ask the zoning board...
No, I'm
for-
asking you, Steve, is that something you would do?
No, I'll give you my opinion.
Okay.
I have all the world of respect for my partner who sits with the zoning board, but candidly, I prefer my opinion.
Yeah, no, okay. I didn't know. Yes, I do. Don't you see the emails back and forth? Okay.
That was fun.
Yeah, watch the guy get hung up.
That was fun.
Item number 4, SEJE Realty. Applicant is 1510 Route 9. Applicant is seeking amended site plan approval for changes to certain areas of the approved site plan from March of 2018. Changes are concerned of 2 areas where additional outdoor storage has been added, et cetera, et cetera. Ron, any comments on this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, as the board knows, earlier in the year, you granted a approval for a change in use of the site from CK Trucking to the steel activity that's proposed. After that approval was granted, the applicant, in occupying the site, made some improvements to some of the storage proposed along the rear of the building. It was greater than was originally expressed to the board, and so I suggested to the applicant that he file an amended application with you to have the board check in on these changed conditions. Glenn can present the specifics. I think that's been discussed with the board before. As I say, it represents an amended application. Yes, I wasn't sure if an amended application was filed. Do you know if that was done? Is there an amended application? Or did we just appear?
I think I did it with a letter.
Okay. The zoning ordinance does have a provision as to how the board typically responds or processes an amended application. I've quoted that in my October 17 memorandum to this board. So if you find that the amended application does not represent a substantial change from the approved site plan, you may grant the amendment without a public hearing. So that's the initial decision to make. Maybe you need the applicant's consultant to review the specific changes proposed.
Plan has not changed since you saw it last time. The expanded area that Ron was talking about was the outdoor storage, which was supposed to come up to slightly to the northeast of the existing building. But when he built it all the way along this stone retaining wall, and you can see a picture of it down in the corner down at the bottom of the map. So when we were reviewing it, we pointed this out to Ron, and there were certain little changes that happened in the engineering, and this was just beyond what he felt was reasonable, so he asked us to come back. I filed the application as a letter because I was anticipating this would be an amendment to the existing site plan, and that's why I didn't put in the formal application. But I did put in the money for a formal application because I was asked to.
I had to pick one.
So, there were a couple of other pleas. I erroneously said this trailer was gone. Kim pointed out it is gone now. And there was, when I visited, there was something else parked here, and I'm told that was gone, but I haven't gone back to the site. We have added 2 things to the plan of any significance. We've identified a different place. Because of this extension, we've identified a different place for the dumpster. Instead of being here at the end of the wall, it's going to be along the side of the building. There's an existing guide rail here, and we're planning to put a fence on top of that existing guide rail to provide some additional screening from Route 9. And you don't see it, even now you don't see it from Route 9, but you might. This is brand new. This is proposed storage, but it's up against a retaining wall that retains the old Highland Turnpike and its shoulders. This is limited to 3 feet. 3 feet high? Let me just check that. Yeah, maximum height of 3 feet. It's for laying down reinforcing rods. There'll be a pile 3 feet high. It'll be against the be against the wall, so you'd be looking over it and over the top of the wall if somebody passes along the old Highland Turnpike. There's quite a bit of rise up from Route 9 here, and there's a wall over on this end of this side of this yard, and so that will deflect any visibility of that outdoor storage. So there is a slight increase in outdoor storage on this amended plan, and other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Comments? Neil? Anyone?
So I guess my only comment was that the Conservation Board was concerned about a fence. And are you,
You had mentioned at the last meeting you were going to ask the Conservation Board about this. I don't know if you did or if you did not. It wasn't on the agenda of the last meeting, but, so.
I spoke with Max yesterday on this very matter, and he's confirmed again that the Conservation Board would be involved in issuing a permit for anything within 100 feet of the stream. And obviously that fence falls within that limitation, so I don't know that they have great concern, but they did acknowledge that there would be an obligation to obtain a permit from that board.
Okay. Understood.
how does that work? Does Glenn just go to them, or do we direct them to?
Typically, all you do is identify that as a condition of approval. He obviously does not receive, the site plans do not get signed off until he obtains that permit, and he satisfies all other conditions of your approval.
Sir, just so I can recall, the applicant already did this, right? So we're just retroactively,
I don't know that he's put in the fencing.
oh, he has
I
not.
think,
Okay.
I think he,
There is.
what we
I remember the whole
observed,
discussion, maybe I recall.
What I said a moment ago was there's an existing guide rail right there, and he's planning to build it on top of the guide rail,
Okay.
to just go vertically, so.
and the provision of the additional storage area is what I had identified in the beginning. That is in place.
That is.
So his mitigation of the fencing or any other issues Glenn has described, I'm not aware if they're in place or not.
That's a significant extension past what was granted. Is there any recourse we have to prevent another one? Or is it in the hands of the building, or the code enforcement
Yeah,
officer?
if you deny the application, he's got to remove what's beyond the original approval.
Okay, and to put this fence up, which to me adds to the additional overage into the creek conservation zone, it's one hand or the other. Which is it? I mean, he's got to get something from the Conservation Board, approval of that fence.
Right.
Or if he doesn't put it, what's the repercussions of that? It becomes a site violation.
Again, if the board imposes conditions, which would be, if you accept the further enhancement he's proposing by this amended approval, and he doesn't put them in place, either the plans won't get signed or he won't be able to obtain the permit from Conservation Board.
Well, be in violation of his site plan.
Right.
And it can be cited by the code enforcement officer and hailed into court and so forth.
And again, if you see issues with what's being offered for this amended site plan, you can deny the entire thing, you can deny portions of it, and ask them to amend what you feel to be too offensive.
So the point of the fence is to screen this additional storage?
Yeah, yes, when we originally submitted it, Ron took a look at it and mentioned that we should do something with regard to the screening. And because I had submitted this plan to him as one of having been addressed your issues. knowing full well that this was extra, and I pointed it out to Ron when I sent it to him. When we discussed it, he said, well, the issue I have with this, besides I can't approve it because it's going beyond the scope of the approval, I think you have a potential sight line issue from Route 9, and I'd like to see something to screen that sight line. So that really was after we developed the first amended plan to take care of the problem, but it was addressing an issue.
Because it seems to me, I mean, since we don't know what the fence is going to look like, you know, like a fence on top of a guardrail, you know, how much fence, you know, like, it could be uglier than just looking at the storage, in
Right.
my opinion.
Yeah, the original application, there was much discussion and comments offered by the applicant himself that said that the storage in the rear of the building would not be visible from Route 9, which you relied upon. So when I saw the plan that showed a significant difference from that, and recognizing that visibility was a concern of this board and there were representations made to you, I advised that I couldn't endorse the plan as reflecting the original approval that was granted.
Right.
And so I suggested that he had to come back here. And I said that if that was to remain, he should consider some kind of mitigation to that visibility issue.
Yeah, because I don't know, you know, it's, aesthetics are a funny thing, right? But, you know, I mean, it's just kind of like, do the materials match, you know, all that kind of stuff. And is there any way to plant trees in the wetland over there?
Well, if you looked in that particular, place, the vegetation is quite dense here, but it's all deciduous.
Yeah.
The existing guide rail is hardly visible. I mean, I'm sure it's hardly visible even in the winter. It's you know, it's one of these low steel guide rails, and it's basically surrounded by vegetation.
How long would the fence be, and what color, and, you know, like, do we get to know about that kind of stuff?
You certainly can, and it's detailed on the drawing.
It is?
Except it's detailed as not being on top of the guide rail, but that was something I was told afterward.
What does it
It's
say?
a standard stockade fence.
Standard stockade fence. Go ahead, Dennis, sorry.
Why was it being put on top of the guardrail? I mean, it seems as if it'd be easier just to sink post and instead of trying to modify.
Well,
Is it to gain additional height?
I think it's just the way he works. I think it's just a matter of him being a steel worker. I think I would think he would probably put up steel that he can weld onto it for the supports.
I have a question about the initial part of this, brought this whole problem up. There's a quote in here that says they're also asking for a little bit of extra outdoor storage against the wall.
Yeah, that's the one
Yeah.
that's the one I posted here.
Why don't they just, any of this additional stuff that was in violation of the original site approval, why don't they just come in and ask for an amended site plan from the beginning? I saw the statement in here. He
No,
said
I think-
it's a genuine mistake or
I-
something, but.
When I first started to prepare this to come in, I was thinking I'm coming back to get minor modifications to an approval that had not been perfected. That is, we didn't fulfill the conditions. And when Ron said you have to go back to the planning board, I thought that's what I was coming back on. When it became apparent that it was going to be an amended site plan, I was going to go through the procedure as if I was coming back to add something 3 years later after I had done it. I then went to the client and he said, well, if I'm going back there, I could really use to put some site stuff
right.
there.
Okay. Neil?
I'm still confused. The fence then came up not because I'm misrecalling meetings. The fence came up in the midst of this because Ron suggested we need a screen, so that's where the fence conversation.
That's correct.
Do we need to then do a site plan visit again? Because I feel like to have a sense of where a fence would go, I kind of need to see what we're thinking about. And whenever we've had fence discussions, whether it be the gas station on Route 9D
agree.
many years ago,
Yeah.
it's all about screening to what extent. And if the screening is uglier than what you'd look at, then that would be like the equivalent of non-conform getting worse. Ugly getting uglier. So let's, I know that's an extra step for your client, and we've been there at least twice now over different iterations of this.
I personally don't believe it's necessary, and I have no objection to that idea, because I think you'll find that too. I think there's a couple of things benefiting or supporting my argument. First of all, there's a significant rise to this lot. Second of all, people going by here 50 miles an hour if they're doing anything. And
You're doing the screening on the 9 side, not on the...
not on the Highland Turnpike, sir.
Okay.
So I don't, to be perfectly frank, I don't think it's necessary, but
Well, we all drive by it enough. I can look at it tomorrow while I'm driving by. I
I
mean,
think he's saying that he doesn't think it's necessary to put the fence up.
that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's, I think if you make the site inspection, I think you'll agree with me.
well, would you like us to come to a determination that the fence is not necessary?
That would be wonderful.
So maybe we should go look at it then.
You ride by and tell us what you think.
I could do that. If you want to delegate it to me, I'm happy to take that responsibility.
Cut the whole process.
If that you'd like that, I will do that, I promise, at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday.
I'll meet you there.
You'll meet. All right, so we're not gonna, I remove
right.
my concept.
Next step, where do we go from here?
Again, it's a matter of determining, one, if you want to have a site visit, two, if you want to schedule a public hearing or not on the matter.
Okay, we'll take a site visit first. Does anyone make a motion for a site visit?
I'll make a motion that we have a site visit.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
it was okay to say no if you guys don't
Yeah,
want to do it.
When are we looking at doing, is this
Well,
Sunday?
no.
Wait,
We
say
need
dates
we
here.
need to
I was
advertise.
kidding about this Sunday, that was.
No, need to advertise.
There's also a few other matters on tonight's agenda where you're likely going to schedule a site visit, so I think it'll all be tied into that one visit, one day.
All right.
Could approval be based on a condition that if we find a problem with the visual of it, that a fence goes in? Or no? Okay.
I'll kind of do it at the meeting.
Tara's got some possible dates. The first one is the 28th.
Of October. That's the earliest, just because of
Sure.
notification.
Can do that.
10/28.
28 I can't make, but that's, shouldn't be
Going to Hawaii
significant.
again?
No, Michigan.
Even better, even better.
I can't make that date either if it matters.
All right, yes, it does. Okay.
Who just said that?
11/4?
Oh, really?
11/4? November 4th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Glenn?
Who runs the company?
Glenn, November 4th?
Glenn's
Pardon me?
boss.
November 4th?
Yes, I can do the
Anybody else?
Oh, wait, we're not, what date?
11/4.
Oh, sorry. I have a haircut at 10:30, so I can do that.
So 9:30?
9:30, yes.
You look fine, you don't need one.
Look, the only person who watches this video that I know of is Wendy at Roberts. She gives me commentary, tells me to clean up my papers sometimes. Wendy, hi.
Okay,
This is great.
Soho Salon's fantastic. Good job, Wendy.
next question.
Advertising.
Do you feel we need a public hearing?
So the last time that we had this in front of us, we had a public hearing and I think nobody came.
Oh, we've had a few of those.
I don't know, I could be wrong, but we could check the
Well,
tape.
I'll ask for a motion. Public hearing. No takers? Okay. We'll do it without a public hearing. Do we need to refer this back to,
It sounds like it needs to go to the CB. I didn't think it did when it came in, to be honest with you, but from what I'm hearing now is there should be a
But it all hinges on whether the fence will go in, or some
Yeah,
screening
that
will go
decision
in.
could be made after the site visit.
If
And
screening
if we
is
take
deemed
it
not
off the plan,
necessary,
we
they
wouldn't
have
need to
no
go.
jurisdiction.
all right, so we're not going to refer to the Conservation Board until we take, do we do the
You
site
make the
visit?
determination whether you want screening.
Right, okay.
Can I
Yes, go ahead.
step in for a second?
Yes.
At the last meeting, you voted to refer it to the Conservation Board, and I did send them a letter
okay.
on September 24th.
But that was, I don't know if it was a formal referral, I didn't think it was last time.
Yeah,
I said
no.
even though they're not,
They
we should send
voted
it
on
just
it.
for, oh, did they?
Yeah, they voted on it, and it was also sent to Putnam County Department of Planning. They voted on that too. So that went September 24th. I haven't heard from them yet.
Did he
So.
send the amendment went to the county planning?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, this one.
Was it in front of the conservation board?
Yeah, they did it.
What was your remark about
Yeah, I thought
That was-
Route 9?
that-
It does or does not have to go to Putnam County?
It has to go to Putnam
Does.
County, it's on the state road.
Route 9, okay.
But
That was the correction that Kim made earlier. You had stated that it wasn't required, but since everybody was interested, so then they made the motion to send it.
Okay, and the CBs looked at it and did what?
I don't think I've heard anything from Max. I'd have to double check, but I don't.
It wasn't discussed,
Oh,
it wasn't on their agenda, the meeting they've had in the intervening time. I don't know if they discussed it after I left, it wasn't on the agenda that night.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to do with this, Steve? We're done. Okay.
Is the public hearing decision
There was
to
no,
have one, or is it one
there
that
was
has
no
to be
motion.
waived?
There was no motion.
Well, I know, there was no motion one way or the other, but is it mandatory unless it's waived? Which is different.
It's not mandatory at all.
It's
It's not ma-
discretionary.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Oh.
In
It's
fact, if they
discretion.
didn't think it was substantial change, they wouldn't be able to hold one at all.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Item number 5, new business. Kristen Connolly, Route 403 Garrison. The applicant seeking site plan approval for a new single-family residence on an approximate 1.5 acre parcel served by private well and septic. It's located in a rural residential zoning district.
Okay,
You'll catch up.
What if he realizes he's being amplified? That's that hallway, it's a megaphone.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Connolly are in the audience. They're seeking, they stage story, yeah. We approved everything while you were gone.
Did you say the applicants are here?
Yes, they're,
Oh, thank you.
okay. As you just read, it's about an acre and a half site. This property is on Route 403, just north of the Appalachian Market. This is that short road that goes over from Route 403 to Route 9. It's just north of the Appalachian Market
Crossroad.
Crossroad. Right, and it'll be a very quick trip for your site visit from SEJE. So what's unique about this this application is I think the first one you've had because of the amount of land disturbance within the Scenic Protection Overlay District. It's not caused by the size of the building. It's just, you know, so, but at any rate, the plan is to build a driveway in from Route 403, circle up to the house. That'll be sort of in the middle of the property, septic system to the south. There's an existing house just to the south. We're very far back, quite a ways back from the road. The driveway's a little bit of a climb, which is what has caused the disturbance within the Scenic Protection Overlay District. State lands to the north, state lands to the west, and I believe this is, no, and that's a residential lot to the south. It's a fairly simple plan, and we're seeking site plan approval for it.
Any comments, Ron?
Yeah, you got a technical memorandum from my office, just to summarize the overall scope of the project. Procedurally, it qualifies as a minor project pursuant to the zoning code, so you want to initially classify it as such at tonight's meeting. There's a variety of agencies involved in the approval. One would be New York State DOT for the highway access permit. Obviously, it's a proposed residential structure, so they require Putnam County DOH approval for the well and septic. They actually have the septic approval in hand, and a copy of that permit's been filed with this board already. since it lies on 403 and abuts state properties, you have a required referral to county planning per GML 239M. And then, per your code, relative to this disturbance of steep, regulated steep slopes, normally you make a referral to the Conservation Board. So that's something that could be authorized tonight. We've identified a variety of technical comments that the applicant can respond to. The only other significant issue for the board to discuss tonight is whether you wish to make a site inspection. And as has been noted, this is immediately in the vicinity of the CK trucking site, so it should be an easy
Across the street, right?
easy accommodation.
All right, we have a series of motions to make.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, this is an 1.5 acre lot, and the zoning is 5 acres. Why is it viable? I mean, why is it,
That's a pre-existing lot.
because it's a pre-existing lot?
Right, they're not creating this lot.
There is a specific provision in the code regarding existing
Okay.
undersized lots.
Okay.
As long as you meet the setbacks, you can build on them.
Right, you only have to meet the other bulk regs for setback and such.
Okay. And it's, but the issue is the disturbance zone. And that it's in the scenic protection and, oh, sorry, and it's in scenic protection district, so, okay.
Anyone else before we need a motion to declare it a minor project?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. We also need to declare it as an unlisted under seeker. Motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Who seconded that? I didn't hear.
Pick one, pick one.
Thank you.
I can hear him.
We need a motion for a site visit, and we already have a date. I guess it would be good, November 4th. Motion to that effect?
At 10 o'clock following.
Yeah, following, whenever we get there, 10 o'clock.
Maybe faster.
Yeah, hopefully. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We declare the planning board's lead agency. Is that necessary in this case?
I don't think there are any other involved agencies. There are
Probably
other
not.
permitting agencies,
Right.
but they're not really involved. So just declare yourselves to be lead agency. No
Okay.
need to circulate for it.
But there's wetlands and endangered species, and does that matter?
Well, yeah, I guess the CB's got to, did CB got to give them a permit, or is it a courtesy referral?
The steep slopes is a courtesy referral. There's a question I've raised. There is wetlands across the street, and it remains to be determined whether any disturbance is within 100 feet of that boundary. So
And-
that's to be determined.
And there's also habitat for rattlesnakes.
Okay, I'll believe you.
But it's in the documents.
Yep, okay.
Well, then to be on the safe side, circulate for lead agency. Send out a letter, and in 30
Yeah.
days, you'll be lead agency.
Okay,
All right. Motion to declare planning board lead agency and circulate to
intent.
intent to be.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Now, none of these referrals have been done. Ron, is that correct? DOT?
Yeah,
or-
right, this is the initial
Yeah.
appearance with this board.
Can we put them all together? We've done this all together, DOT, DOH,
Sure.
county planning?
Yeah.
Steve?
I mean, you might as well send it to everybody if you're sending it out. I don't see a
Right.
problem with that. Technically, you do not need to send to county planning or DOH. I don't even think DOT as far as that goes, but if the CB is going to be an involved agency, or what, is it a state wetland or a federal wetland across the street?
I don't know.
It's unregulated?
I don't know.
Now, they've identified it as reglands that, wetlands that could be regulated by the town.
Then it's
So we have to
unregulated
check.
wetland, so it would go to the CB, it wouldn't go to ACOE or to DEC.
Right.
So, yeah, so CB is the only other possible
Okay.
involved agency.
So referral to the town?
Yes, just mail it to everybody, though, I mean.
Yeah,
just
okay.
as-
Motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we're not ready to schedule a public hearing?
No, you want a site visit to start out with.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be in a position. I know it's a simple,
Well, you generally don't meet in December, and you almost always lose a meeting either in January or February. So we could be facing the February public hearing, and
you want to schedule it
I was
for
thinking,
November then? And worst case
conditional.
scenario is you could just adjourn it if you're not ready to.
Right.
Why is this a public hearing? It's a minor project.
You don't have to.
No,
You could waive it if you wanted.
but again, as we've said over and over, and Steve has pointed out, we've said it over and over, with neighbors, I don't think it'll be a big deal, public hearing. But the board can decide. Kim?
Well, so based on the documents, since the applicant has a time running at, like, if it doesn't get approved, they can return the property to the prior owner within 6 months. So I think we should move as quickly as we can, in case,
Well, all right.
So I'm
So-
happy to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for November.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Third Thursday,
It's an early meeting. It's on the 15th.
the third Thursday is only the 15th, yes, the week before.
Oh,
Why? I thought it was, well,
third Thursday.
it was the third.
What are you up to? Do you need a drink?
I wish.
All right. The final item.
Bring us home.
Lowry residence, 80, how do you say, is it Erie or Irie? Say, Glenn? Erie.
Erie, I guess. Okay, well, to bring you home, I have to have an assistant here who's actually the boss of the project here, Susan Rodriguez. Susan Rodriguez is the design architect, and she is the spouse of Mr. Lowry, the applicant. For those of you who don't know where Erie is, it's a private road roughly opposite Papa John's, or whatever they call it now.
Oh, okay.
Garrison Pizza.
Okay?
You know
And,
that.
and
Friday night for 20 years.
And really proposing very little, and the salient points, the way I see it, really have to do with the design in terms of its visibility. So this is the property. It's what is it? It's about 68 acres. It's off of Route 9. This is a this fairly old road. It's been here as long as I can remember, and it services, I think, two houses: an existing house right in the middle of this property, and a second house, maybe a third house up here that was before you a number of years ago, I think, for a man named Sterling. Anyway, Mr. Lowry bought the property maybe roughly a year ago with the idea of renovating the existing house and moving in. After significant effort at renovation, they decided that it was better to tear it down and replace it. So this application is for site plan approval to replace an existing house. The topography on this first sheet is to show you a couple of things. We have a scenic ridge line here, and we have a scenic ridge line here, and we're sure that we fall within the scenic ridgeline protection area. So that has its own restrictions, which I'll get to in a minute. the existing house is shown in this blank spot, and I'm getting paranoid about not talking into that microphone. So this hole you see is what I'm going to show you on the next page, and all the proposed activity is within that hole in the first map. So we approach the property from the east. I guess we didn't put north arrow on here. There's an existing circular drive. This is the existing condition. It's a roughly 1965 house? Later. Okay, 1970s, I'll correct it. House, a frame garage, the remains of another building that's coming down. And
Well, just out of curiosity, you said, ma'am, 1970 approximately?
yes,
And it's in that kind of condition. I mean, when was the last time it was occupied?
why don't you come up so your comments can get on the...
Approximately, when was the last time it was occupied?
It was occupied continuously, I believe, till we purchased the property from the Yetnikoffs a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But well, you'll see, I guess, when you visit, but the condition of the building is, all the systems are gone. We thought that was okay, but then all the exterior cladding is gone. There's a lot of deterioration. It wasn't built very well in the beginning, as we got all the structural engineers coming up there. There's a lot of, water damage. There's a lot of insects damage, and it looks like, you'll see it sort of looks like Pizza Hut too, so I thought we could figure that out. But after basically having to rebuild the house, we decided it'd be better to do something, that we really would like, so.
Thanks.
So I'm going to go back to the existing conditions. This house is going to be removed, and that other little building is going to be removed and replaced by this house. It's the dark is not all of the area that's covering the ground. It's the porches, and there are outside areas, but this is where the new house is. It's virtually the same spot. It's same driveway, same garage area, a completely new house. The issues that we talked about were I was of the belief that I would find a site up there, and I had not been up there before, that would be very visible from Route 9D in particular, because it's pretty close to the top of the hill. As it turns out, you don't see 9D at all. You do see across the river, and you do get river views, but they're quite distant. And so the issue of public visibility, I think, wasn't so much an issue as I had expected it would be, but still it's a little bit of an issue. And the design that you'll see in a minute has addressed that. We are going to use the existing septic system. We already know it's sufficient for this house. We're going to use, I'm not sure, we're going to drill a new well?
No, the well's here.
We're going to use an existing well, and they're making improvements to the garage to make a little studio, overnight guest quarters out of that.
So we decided.
Oh, you changed, no, okay. So that's the story in a nutshell. There's not much else to show you. Limit of disturbance is not very big, but we are over 3,000 square feet, and that's why we're here.
And the other thing we're going to do is, there was a guest house here, and I guess it got hit by a tree. And so they tore it down, but there's a lot of foundation, sort of unsightly. So we're just going to remove it and repair.
Okay,
Questions from the board? Anybody?
now we can just show you a couple of things about the house that particularly with that as the house, there's been particular concern. I'm sorry, there's been particular effort made to address the issue of visibility, and I got some smaller ones of those.
do have this.
I'm sure you all want to go home. but- No, I just,
Is
is
there
that,
anything, yeah,
can
is
you
there
hear
anything
me?
different with this, Glenn?
Oh, okay, sure. So if you go, a lot of the stuff is just context you'll see, but if you go to SK 12, because it's in the scenic ridgeline map, the height limitation is 30 feet, so I've carefully worked to limit it to exactly 30 feet. So, but you can see the location of it relative to the ridge lines. So if then you flip to the next SK 13, took the worst-case scenario because it has the cantilever, so we made the footprint as large as possible and just dropped it directly down and did the calculations to establish the grade. And then when you go to the next SK 14, it's designed to meet the 30-foot limit, which is shown. It's a two-story structure that sits, from one side it's way within, the other it is exactly at 30. And then the other thing Glenn asked me to address was because of the views, which are spectacular, there is glass on a substantial side looking toward the Hudson. And so if you go to SK 15, both of those areas of glass on the two levels, on the top floor it's set back sort of in a porch of 8 feet. And then on the first level, it's set back 12 feet. So in effect, because you'll always be looking up at it, it puts all the glass in shadow. And reduces the glare, et cetera. So I think those are the relevant points. And there's even a bigger detail on 16, SK 16. So you can see the porch and the overhang. It's kind of like an upside-down house where you live upstairs and you sleep downstairs.
You want this for the record?
So how high is the original house?
If you go to, we've overlaid it. It's about a story and a half, so it's another 25% taller, SK 14.
Yeah, okay. And obviously, is the land in front of it cleared like this, or is it lots of trees?
Oh, there's lots of trees.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a really ugly pool. Sorry, that's what I shouldn't say. They had a pool right in front that had a whole chain link fence. It was sort of an above ground pool. So that was the first thing we did to get rid of it. Where the pool was, it's cleared, but it's really beautiful because you kind of are floating in the tree canopy, and so we want to keep it that way. And really, in effect, return everything to the natural condition.
Anything else, anybody? Need all the declarations? Ron, declare it minor.
Yeah, again, it's a residential project, so they qualify as a minor project pursuant to the zoning regulations. That's an action that you can
Yeah.
so classify tonight.
Motion to that effect? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We declare this unlisted action?
Yeah.
Coordinated review?
I'll make the motion unlisted.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Declare the planning board lead agency?
Did I hear coordinated or uncoordinated review?
Coordinated.
Coordinated?
Don't know whether involved agencies, are they? Who else is
Well,
involved?
we need confirmation from Putnam County Health as to the adequacy of the sanitary.
Yeah, they're not really an involved agency. If you're gonna do a coordinated review, you gotta circulate intent.
Yeah.
You wanna do that?
Well,
I mean, if you can, if you want.
no, we don't
no,
want to, but I mean, just thinking right away, courtesy to the fire company, of course.
Yeah, but
The courtesies are done separately.
Okay, the
right?
courtesies, okay,
What about the conservation board?
yeah.
Yeah, that's again another courtesy referral, just as you did in the last application, relative to disturbances of steep slopes.
Okay.
So just declare yourselves lead
We
agency.
just, yeah.
Worry about coordinated or
Right.
coordinate. If you're the only involved agency, you lead agency, end of story.
Okay, motion to declare planning board lead agency.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in fa-
Lastly, because
Go ahead.
the property has frontage on Route 9, requires a referral to Putnam County Planning.
Okay,
I'll make that motion that we refer to Putnam County Planning.
second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And did we say conservation board? We're gonna- Courtesy.
Them and the fire company.
And the,
I have one more question, I'm sorry. I'm
Go
just looking at my notes here. In your documents, it says something about it being an archaeologically sensitive area? I think it's in this part. I just want to know what that was. So maybe we can talk about it when we're there.
Yes, we can talk about it. You know, that first part, the, that's what you do with the modern way to do an EAF is to go online and put in your location, and a number of these things get filled out automatically. And I'm sure it's on a map, I'm sure that happens because it's on a map somewhere, but we'll look into it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't register with me.
And that obviously becomes very significant when you're doing significant new site disturbances. For the most part, they're rebuilding in place.
Yeah, we're rebuilding in place, so it wouldn't be,
Right.
right, if anything would have been damaged or destroyed when the original house was built.
okay, we have two more set of site visit. The next day, we can't do it on the 4th, we have the other two. The next available date is 11/11, which is Veterans Day, but that's celebrated the next day, the Monday, so.
I sincerely don't think that the first two site inspections are going to take you very long on the 4th.
Yeah, you can do
And I
three.
don't mean
I'm
to
just thinking of,
speak-
yeah, getting from,
The one
Yeah, on the
residential
way home,
site,
right.
the prior
Okay.
residential site you discussed,
all right.
it's an acre and a half parcel. And
Okay.
you'll see that from the road.
So we'll do that on the 4th,
Following the other two.
yeah.
We always go, let's highlight that thought. Often when we have three of these, we seem to always get lost on each other. So we're going to start at
You're gonna start at
Put
1510
everybody,
Route 9.
beepers, everybody has a beeper.
SEJE.
SCJE is first at
Then across the
9:30.
street.
Then you're going to Conley's, the new application off of 403, and then after that, you'll go.
Howard.
very good.
I'll send out a
All right,
reminder.
we're gonna put
Definitely have.
homing beacons on everybody's car?
Yep.
All right.
They're not supposed to know.
I think we need a vote on that.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Set a public hearing?
Maybe we have to all in favor.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Getting late. Set a public hearing for next month? Anybody?
Need a motion?
Yeah, motion.
Motion. So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Is there anything else we need, Steve, Ron? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Aye, thank you.